So what am I doing in this video?
Duck!
That's right, I'm doing a duck. Yeah, we're doing a duck, and we're gonna be doing it tomorrow because we gotta get that duck ready tonight so it can sit in the refrigerator, sort of air dry to get that skin nice and dry with some great seasoning on it. Tomorrow, we're gonna be cooking it up on the rotisserie out on the Weber Kettle. Now, the rub we're gonna be using to season this duck is a two-part rub. The first part has 5 ingredients. We're gonna start with a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of cracked black pepper, half a teaspoon of granulated garlic, half a teaspoon of poultry seasoning, and a teaspoon of Sriracha sea salt. This is something I found, it's from a company called Fresh Jacks. They actually emailed me and said, hey, we'd like to send you some of these seasonings. Well, I went online and I looked at them, and it's like, I actually think I would use those quite a bit, so I just went ahead and bought them at Amazon. I didn't take any free samples of this. There's 5 different ones, and this Sriracha one is really good, so we're using a teaspoon of it. Go ahead and get our lid on, shake it up. That's what we're looking for. So we're gonna go ahead and get the duck out here, get this seasoning on it, and get our second layer of seasoning on it. But first, we gotta do a couple things to that duck to get it ready. So what we're working with today is about a 4.5, 5 pound duck. I bought this duck frozen, thawed it out in the refrigerator, and I've done duck breasts before in the smoker. I've never done a whole duck. So this is gonna be fun and interesting. One of the things that I learned and from reading a lot of different recipes is many people will puncture the skin so that the rendered fat has a place to go. This is very fatty. Ducks are a lot of fat. This is a water bird, and this is all dark meat. Ducks don't really have white meat like a chicken would here. They exercise those muscles all the time flying. That's that dark meat. Now, I've heard various different numbers here. You're supposed to prick the skin at least 50 times, 70 times, 100 times. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not even gonna keep count. I'm just gonna prick it a lot. What you wanna do is get through the skin into the fat, but try not to get into the meat in too many places. And there's a lot of different things you can use, but I'm just gonna use this little corn cob holder. It's got 2 little spikes on the end. I think it's gonna work great. Trying not to go too deep here, just trying to get through that fat. Get legs, thighs, make sure you get the back too. When you're just doing duck breasts and you're smoking those, and when I did those before, then I sort of pan-seared them, you don't really have to worry too much about this because that fat really renders off quickly in the pan. But since we're doing a whole duck on the rotisserie, we do want to try and get some of that excess fat out of there. All right, that looks good. Let's get our first layer of seasoning on here. That's going to be that rub that we just mixed up. Now tomorrow we're also going to be making a maple-based glaze for this duck, which I haven't decided if I'm going to put it on near the end of the cooking process or if we're just going to save it until the duck is completely done and we're carving it and eating it. All right, quick change to clean gloves, and what I'm going to be using for the top layer of seasoning here may sound strange, but it's going to work really well. I've used it on chicken before. And that Smiling Swine barbecue rib rub, it's really good. I get a good coating on here. If I didn't mention it, I trimmed this duck up a little bit more. There's a lot of neck skin that's usually left there. All right, that's looking good. This duck's gonna go in the refrigerator overnight, so it's probably gonna be about 12, 13 hours before it goes on the rotisserie. Then we're gonna cook it up. We're gonna have some fantastic eats tomorrow. All right, our duck has been resting overnight in the refrigerator with that great dry brine seasoning on it. It's gonna get some great flavor on the rotisserie today, but first we wanna get the glaze made. Now this is gonna be a maple orange glaze, and we're starting with 3/4 cup of maple syrup. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, the juice of 1 medium-sized orange, maybe a little smaller than medium. And we're gonna add a tablespoon of orange zest. I'm gonna mix this up. Oh, you can already get the hints of that orange there with that zest and all those oils releasing. If you don't use zest in different sauces and things, especially sweet sauces, give it a try. Take a quick taste here. That's good. All right, I'm gonna reserve about half of this for the end of our cook so we can put it on the duck right when we're gonna eat it. The rest, I'm probably gonna glaze the duck when it's got about 10 or 15 minutes left on the rotisserie. So let's move on to our duck. So we're gonna get our duck on the spit, that rotisserie rod that's going to hold it on the rotisserie. But first, I wanna do a couple more things to the skin. Remember when we started, I used that sort of corn cob holder, that very sharp spike in it to poke holes. I wanna take just a regular knife now with a sharp point, and I wanna poke a few more holes here, just along the breast. About every inch. Want to try and give that fat beneath the skin here as much of a place to exit the bird as it can. We want to render some of that. All right, that's good. Now, the orange juice and the orange zest that I made came from an orange, and we're just going to take the pieces of that orange and we're going to fill the cavity with it. Got the 2 orange halves here. That'll help sort of puff up the duck here because it has a tendency to want to lay flat. It's also hopefully going to give us some good juice inside there. All right, let's get it on the rod. We will be tying the legs and the wings back, but first I want to get it on the rod here. So we're just going to go straight through, and if we need to push it through any of those orange halves, we will. We're going to try and get a good hit right there. And get the fork for our other side in. Once that's in, tighten it down. Now for the wings, I'm gonna fold them back, and in a minute, when I flip the bird over, we're actually gonna tie those so that they just stay sort of on the back side. Now ducks have little stubbier legs than chickens, so we are just gonna tie it here. Really just need to sort of keep them from flopping around. So now first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just check this for balance, and yeah, it's feeling pretty good. Now I just wanna turn it over here, and we're just gonna lock these wings in place so that as they loosen up, they don't go flopping around. So we're gonna tie it just above the elbow. Same thing on the other side. There we go. Let's get this bird out to the rotisserie. So we have the Weber Kettle with the rotisserie attachment, the rotisserie ring, 2 briquette baskets with a mix of lump and briquette. I want that because I want the higher heat of the lump. I want this to be in the 350 range today. Get our duck on here, and let's get spinning. I also have a foil pan with water in the center that should catch a lot of the fat drippings, duck fat, highly flammable. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put a piece of apple wood here on one side just to get a little bit of smoke today. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get our lid on, get cooking. So we're gonna let this go for about 30 minutes before we check it. As I mentioned, I'm shooting for something in the 350 degree range for the Weber Kettle today. With the rotisserie ring on there, it is a little more difficult to manage. There's a bigger volume of air in there. So my vents are choked down a bit. My bottom vent is at 1/3 and my top vent is about half open. Now, the temperature we're shooting for is, it's a little bit of a choice here. Very much a personal preference. The safe recommended temperature is still 165 degrees. But duck meat is different, and a lot of people like it down in that sort of rare, medium rare range, 135, 140. I prefer it in the 150 to 155 range. So I'm gonna shoot for about 150 degrees. Carryover will probably bring it to that 155. But for ultimate safety, you should cook it to 165 degrees internal. So in half an hour, we'll temp it, we'll see how we're doing, and we may even glaze it at that time. All right, we are 30 minutes into this cook. We're at about 359 degrees for the kettle temp. Let's have a look. That duck is looking beautiful. I'm not even sure I'm gonna need to glaze this. Look at all that fat rendering out through those holes. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the rotisserie so we can get a temperature check. Let's check our breast temperature right here. 117 right there, but I need several places. And that's like 111. Let me get down in the thigh here. Yeah, see the thighs are showing 92. So I'm guessing we're probably close to that 95 to 100 range. I am gonna make sure that the thighs get to that 145, 150 degree range that I want. So even if the breasts go a little bit further, I'm gonna be fine with that. But I'm gonna get the rotisserie going and we're gonna check this again in about 15 minutes. All right, we've been going another 15 minutes. Let's give it a check. And I think I might glaze it. Another check here. I want to get some of the thigh check first. 123. Actually, that's 125. So we're kind of matching here, which is good. And that gives me time to glaze it with our Maple Orange Glaze. Get the rotisserie going again so we can get the backside. All right, I'm gonna get the lid on. We're gonna check it again in about 15 minutes. Should be pretty close to that 150-ish range, 145, 150 that I want. All right, I checked it a while ago and decided to add a little more time, so we've going just over an hour now. So let's see. Gorgeous color on this duck. All right, I'm gonna get a quick check here. It's looking good. That's showing 144 right there, close enough to 145. Carryover is going to take this to 150. All right, I'm going to get this off, get it inside, tent it loosely with foil, let it rest, and then we're going to have a taste. All right, here it is, our Maple Orange Rotisserie Duck. It's been resting for about 20 minutes now. I got to tell you, it just really looks gorgeous. I put a little bit more of that glaze on the surface, but in all honesty, it wouldn't even really need that. It still had a nice sheen there, a great color, but I want a little bit more of that maple orange flavor on the surface. So let's see. Let's cut in to some of this breast meat here. Oh, nice. You can see how there's a little bit of pink there. That's duck meat. If you're gonna cook it to not 165 degrees and you wanna retain some of that pinkness, a little bit more of that medium rare, although this is more medium well, that 150 to 155 finish temperature, that's what you're gonna get, and boy, does it look good. Let's cut another slice. Oh, look at those juices. I just wanna keep cutting, but you know what? I wanna get some thigh meat too. So I'm just gonna go down in here. And again, you're gonna get some more pinkness if you decide you wanna cook it to that lower temperature, not that 165. I'm just gonna cut right here off sort of the leg thigh area. Oh yes, look at that, nice fat still. You're not gonna render out all the fat when you cook a duck. You wanna try and render out a good amount of it, and the amount of liquid in the water pan that I had out there was about double, meaning it rendered quite a bit of that fat. And you can see here, there's still fat, but it has rendered down. And you could also see that when we first checked the duck about 30 minutes in, how glistening the surface was. That fat was rendering out. So I gotta say here, nothing left to do. It's time to taste. So I'm gonna start with a piece of this breast meat. And I gotta tell you, the juiciness here is just off the chart. We're getting a duck juice-a-lanch, which I'm very pleased with. So let's see. Duck has such a mild flavor when you just taste the meat. When you give it those seasonings on the surface, and I think we did get a little more of that orange flavor inside with those orange pieces that were in the body cavity, it takes those other flavors so well. But I gotta tell you, just that mellow flavor it has on its own is amazing. and it is impossible to complain about the fat that does remain even after rendering. It is delicious. That skin color turned out perfect, not rubbery at all. I wouldn't call it crispy, but it cuts through, it bites through. There are ways to get crispier skin on this, but on the rotisserie, when you're doing an indirect, you're not going to super high heat. It is a little more difficult, but I gotta say, I wouldn't change this. And now, thigh meat. I've said it every time I make turkey, chicken, and taste it, the thigh meat is my favorite part. You know, in a duck, there's less difference between the breast meat and the thigh meat because it's all basically dark meat. Those duck breasts work all the time, flapping wings, they fly. Chickens and turkeys really don't. So you're gonna get more flavor in the breast that's similar to what you would have in the thighs, but thighs are still darker. So let's see. That is killer. So tender, so juicy. And I do have to say, the combination rub that I used on the surface, that one rub that we made plus the Smiling Swine Barbecue rib rub, works perfectly. So yeah, you can use a rib rub on other things or a beef rub on other things. It doesn't really matter. Go for the flavor profile you want, and this one, it works really well. Total cook time on this was about 1 hour and 10 minutes. It might have been 1 hour and 15. I lost track for just a little bit there, but that's not bad for something like this. The kettle temperature stayed really close to 150 once the bird was on. We were in that 340 to 360 range the entire time. So you could replicate this without a rotisserie, doing it on the kettle, shooting for that temperature range. I would just rotate the bird so that you have one side facing the indirect source and then rotate it about halfway through so the other side faces it. You could do this in the oven easy. There's many ways to do this. And if you like duck and you've never tried making it, give it a shot, it's worth it. So if you want to do a whole duck and you've never done it before, this was my first time doing a whole duck. I've done duck pieces, but I got to tell you, doing this whole duck, especially on the rotisserie, was a perfect way to do it. The results are something I hope I can replicate again because this is probably the best duck I've ever had. That is great duck.